So that's what I'm going to talk about today. What is decentralization? How does it compare to centralization? Why do we care? So first of all, decentralization is not new. Decentralization, in fact, is the original form of organization. Decentralization means person to person. And it's the system of organization we've used in society for as long as society existed. In fact, centralization is the new invention. Centralization is the invention of agrarian economies. Centralization is how you organize cities to scale once you have density of population. We needed something to organize, and out of that came politics, religion, and organizational systems that centralized control so that you could scale agrarian societies. And now we're talking about decentralization again, and the reason is because we're trying a different way to scale. Centralization and decentralization, fundamentally, if you think about it, is a matter of architecture. It's the architecture of power. It's how you organize power in a society. And centralization is a system of organization of power that looks like a pyramid. It's a hierarchical system of power. And it's very efficient. It's very efficient because it allows very large numbers of people to make decisions quickly and efficiently in a way that allowed agrarian societies to grow to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, and now tens of millions and hundreds of millions of people within a single cohesive society. Centralized organizations, a hierarchy allows you to marshal resources. Marshal, of course, being the word for raising armies, which is probably one of the most important resources that was organized by centralized societies. But hierarchy has a fatal flaw. And the fatal flaw of hierarchy as an organizational principle is that as it scales, it becomes more and more corrupted. If you build a pyramid, the wider the base, the higher the top. The further apart the peak of the pyramid is from the base. And a system that is hierarchical and looks like a pyramid concentrates power from a very wide base to a pinnacle of power, the highest position of power at the top of the pyramid. Hierarchical systems are systems of concentration of power. And what happens with human beings when you concentrate power? Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. The higher up in the pyramid, the more corrupt. It becomes a nexus that attracts sociopaths. And the problem with centralized systems of societal organization is that we can only scale them so far before they really start attracting the worst sociopaths imaginable. If you have a village with 100 people and you build a hierarchical system with a village council that represents the 100 villagers, you don't have a lot of power. And okay, maybe your crazy uncle ends up being the sociopath in charge of the 100 villagers. They can't really do a lot of damage. You widen that pyramid and you create a system of hierarchical power that has 100 million people at the bottom, and you will attract a very big sociopath to rise to the top of that pyramid. And they will arrive at a position of power that is very far removed from the bottom of that pyramid. Decentralized systems are an architecture that represents a flat system. Every peer is equal. And so in a decentralized system, the problem is that you cannot scale horizontally and continue to make decisions efficiently. That is, until we invented network protocols. And with network protocols, what we can do now is take flat systems and scale them to millions of participants and still make decisions efficiently. We can take a flat system like the big blockchain, and every 10 minutes we can hold a vote and decide what the current state of consensus is in a flat system that now scales to millions of participants. We can take the internet and scale out freedom of information to 3 or 4 billion people without hierarchy. So the reason we're talking about decentralized systems again, after thousands of years in which centralized systems dominated, is because we now have the ability through network protocols to scale decision-making in a flat system across millions of participants. But decentralized systems are not efficient. They're not efficient at making decisions. If you want efficiency, you build a pyramid. What is the truth? Whatever the guy at the top says. What do we do? Whatever the guy at the top says. How fast can you make a decision? As fast as the guy at the top. But the problem with that is corruption. Not only do you attract sociopaths, but the bigger you build a pyramid, the more of a sociopath you attract. And you get this disparity of power, this enormous disparity of power between the top and the bottom of the pyramid. Why would anyone at the bottom of the pyramid agree to the system? Why would they continue to believe that this is a powerful and efficient system of organization? Because of one simple lie. And that lie is the promise that one day you can climb up that pyramid and that power can be yours. And if you believe that lie, which is obviously untrue because there's very few positions at the top and a very broad base, clearly not everyone can climb to the top. But you have the Lake Wobegon effect, which is we're all above average. I too one day aspire to be rich, so I don't want the rich to be taxed. I aspire to be powerful, so I don't want the powerful decisions to be questioned. I aspire to become an authority, so I don't want people challenging authority. That lie is the basis on which you sell a pyramid system to 100 million slaves at the bottom. That lie is the basis on which you sell sociopathy on a grand scale to entire populations. And until now, that's the only thing that you could scale to hundreds of millions of people. We can do better now. We can build systems of organization at scale with millions of participants that are flat, that do not create concentrations of power, that have no levers to pull, that have no position for a sociopath in them, because the sociopath has as much power, or if you think about it, as little power as everybody else. Now, as you can guess, some people will object to this new arrangement of things. And the way they will object is by pointing out the inefficiency of the system. You can't make decisions fast enough. You're not efficient. They'll say, while pointing to the decentralized system. You can't even arrive at a decision to raise the block size limit. Look at us. We have a meeting every Friday, and when Miss Yellen says we're raising the interest rate, we're raising the interest rate. Simple, direct, efficient. Efficiency is great, unless you're one of the 100 million slaves at the bottom of the pyramid, in which case the efficient decision might be to just squash you a bit more, squeeze you a bit more. Efficiency is a trade-off, and the trade-off you're making is liberty. The whole point of decentralized systems is not to be more efficient, but to give you liberty, autonomy, independence, empowerment for everyone who participates. Not the lie that one day you will rise a couple couple of rungs further up the ladder. So when the shit slides downhill, it's going to pass you by, barely missing you, and hit some unfortunate soul on the rung below you. You're like, feels good to be part of the upper class. That is the lie. Now, if you think of these systems as architecture, then the architecture determines how power is attracted to that architecture. If you have an architecture of a system that looks like a pyramid, it will create a focal point that attracts power at the top. If the architecture is flat, it provides fewer opportunities for power to concentrate. And decentralization versus centralization is not a binary state, right? It's not 100% centralized or 100% decentralized. Most of the time, it's somewhere in between. But the degree of centralization versus decentralization matters, especially when you're talking about a battle for power. This architecture determines how power will evolve over time in society. We're presenting an alternative mechanism for organizing societies. At a very basic level, you might look at it and say, it's a currency, it's a payment system, it's a system for supporting smart contracts, but that's not what it is. The technology behind Bitcoin is not the blockchain. The technology behind Bitcoin is the architecture of decentralization. That is the thing that's magical. That is the thing that gives us the opportunity to change the equation of power, to change the architecture of power. And the best part about it is that the scale between centralization and decentralization is asymmetric. What does that mean? If you have a system of power that's based on decentralization, you have to have 100% control. A little bit of decentralization really screws up the system. We don't need to be 100% decentralized. A little bit of decentralization goes a long way. Let's take a hypothetical. Let's say you have a stadium, and this stadium has 100 gates, and you're holding a concert inside that stadium, right? And you want to apply a system of centralized control in order to get paid for the tickets to the concert. Of the 100 gates, how many of those gates do you need to control and check for tickets for that concert to not be a free concert?
99.
100. Because if you only control 99 gates and everybody knows which gate is free, your stadium will fill up even though no one came through the 99 gates. You have a free concert because you left one of the gates open. If you have a system of end-to-end control that applies identity and rules of control and censorship over money, how many doors do you need to leave open for everyone who wants to take the exit? 1. Bitcoin. And you've immediately undermined the system of end-to-end control. In fact, the gatekeepers are then left with this incredible dilemma. If there is a way to exit the system and you don't have end-to-end control, who are you left surveilling and controlling? The innocent and the idiots. The people who couldn't figure out how to use door number 99. The one that was free. So you set up a system of totalitarian surveillance and control, and we open a little door on the side that says Bitcoin over it, and everybody who wants can take that door, and who are you left collecting identity? Who are you left collecting surveillance information over their payments? The innocent and the idiots. You've got a data set that is useless. Centralization and decentralization are not equal architectures. If you decentralize a tiny bit in a system of control, control evaporates. If you have a dam that's holding back a lake, 100% structural integrity is the standard. 99% structural integrity means your valley is a lake. Bitcoin is someone drilling a hole in the dam of international finance. $12 billion are now flowing through that hole, leaking out of the system, draining the lake, and the hole keeps getting wider. And they're freaking out watching this little hole get wider and wider, and what they haven't noticed is 1,000 other cryptocurrencies drilling holes next to it. And so the system of centralization can be broken with a tiny bit of decentralization. But we also have to be careful. Decentralized systems are subject to corruption and capture if you give them a target. If you create a point of control, if you concentrate power within a decentralized system, that point of control, that concentration of power immediately becomes a target. It becomes a target because in this battle between these two architectures, power is attracted to points of control. And the moment you create a point of control, it will be attacked. If there is someone to serve a subpoena, they will serve a subpoena. If there is someone to censor, they will censor. If there is someone to persecute, to disappear, to kidnap, to assassinate, they will do that. Not in this country, maybe. But what happens when you offend powers in some of the other countries in the world? In order for decentralized systems to be effective, we have to guard against the concentration of power. We have to maintain decentralization to give no handhold, no lever, no point of control or concentration that will allow that system to be re-centralized. And every time someone says, we're going to fix this, we can make it more efficient. We can add identity, increase transaction rates, speed things up. What they're talking about is building a pyramid again. What they're talking about is centralizing power again. And so what we're looking at right now is establishing an architecture of freedom that allows us to change the nature of social institutions. This is not about payments. Payments, just the first step. This is about understanding that we now have, through internet protocols, the ability to redesign the mechanisms of social organization to create systems that are egalitarian, that provide autonomy, independence, freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, and empowerment for millions and billions of individuals around the world, simply by changing the shape, simply by choosing decentralization. That's what is going on here today. This is why Bitcoin and other things like it are absolutely terrifying to those who are trying to preserve the architecture of power. Because if you're in the pyramid, in a position of power, and you look down, what do you see? You see 100 million slaves, right? You see the lowest rung of power in the pyramid. And if you think that the flat and decentralized system means that everybody gets to live like that, that's terrifying, right? That's terrifying because that's the only example you can see of the masses sitting under the weight of a system of power that is crushing people. But that's not what decentralized systems are about. Decentralized systems where everyone is a peer are not about anyone being stepped on. They're about everyone being equal in representation. And so decentralization is not a scary thing. It's a promise of hope. It's a promise of hope for a form of organization of our society that can create new opportunities for everyone. And that's my message today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.